Buenas tardes, good evening. Welcome back to the Instituto Cervantes Manchester and Leeds YouTube channel. First of all, I would like to extend a warm welcome to our guests, Burkham and Ignacio Evangelista, who have honored the Instituto Cervantes to launch their book, Europa with an interrogation. This book is a collaboration between those authors, the Spanish photographer Ignacio Evangelista and British writer Burkham, and it's combining photography and fiction to examine the experiences of modern Europe migrants. In his photographic series, After Schengen, Ignacio Evangelista photographed the European borders crossing abandoned since the Schengen Treaty came into force in 1985. Writer Burkham saw these photographs in the newspaper Sunday Telegraph, and the result was this book, an hybrid collection of images and fiction. Book scans short stories, asks who makes these journeys after Schengen, and puts the names to Evangelista's images, which characters and narratives that explore the experiences of the people who moved in the continuous flux wandering that forms a central part of the European reality, and we could say also the European experiment, because it is important to bear in mind that the creation of the European Union is something unique in history. We never had such a union of more than 20 countries before in the world history. The border is a strip of passage that can describe as a zone on transit, which by its very nature is a place of miscegenation. As Burkham explains in one of the stories, when a traveler, for example, is in the Pyrenees, they could be either in France or in Spain, and without those physical demarcation lines that previously existed before Schengen, they don't know really in which country they are in. That feeling transformed the perception of the territory and the meaning of the borders in Europe. And that, along many other aspects and things, will be discussed later with the authors. But before we start talking and with the guest, I am going to introduce them. Burkham writes short fiction and was previously freelance feature journalist. He wrote and edited a post-punk fanzine in the late 1970s and wrote about culture and music for sounds and the face in 1980s. He interviewed Yasser Arafat and the PLO leadership in Tunis for the New Society in 1984, and covered the events of the United Kingdom miners' strikes in 1984 for the New Statements, which he revisited in 2004 for the Observer magazine. He also wrote travel and fashion articles for the Financial Times about the Shakespearean drama group in the favelas of Rio de Janeiro for the Sunday Telegraph magazine, as well as contributing to the Sunday Times, The Guardian, The Spectator, Private Eye, and Vanity Fair. Ignacio Evangelista is a Spanish photographer born in Valencia, and his works examines the sometimes contradictory relationship between the natural and the artificial. He focuses on places and situations where the things do seem to be in the right place or the right time, not to be, in the right place or the right time, both physically and temporarily. The After Schengen exhibition series has been exhibited in the USA, Germany, France, Switzerland, Netherlands, Canada, Hungary, and Spain, and has also been featured in CNN TV, Arte TV, The Independent on Sunday, The Atlantic, L'Œil de la Photographie, The Spiegel, Vice, Forbes, The European, Haaretz, among many others. So welcome, Ignacio, welcome, Chris. And let's start with the dialogue about your wonderful book. First of all, how did this book, this project, Europa, come about?
Well, basically, I saw Ignacio's photographs in the Independent on Sunday. And as you know from the photographs, there are no people in the photographs. And they spoke to me and they suggested that they needed people in the photographs and their stories. And so it just came from that very simple idea. So I contacted Ignacio and he agreed to read the stories, and the collaboration began that way, very simply.
So it was just
say that first,
sorry.
excuse me,
Enough.
that it was a longer way, because I made this photo series between 2011 and 2014, more or less. I mean that it wasn't so fast, so easy, I wish. And in 2015, due to the Syrian war, you remember there were a lot of Syrian refugees that came to try to came to Europe. In a first moment, this work, well, the war is called After Schengen, and it's focused on former border checkpoints that were working before the Schengen Agreement. I don't know if everybody knows Schengen Agreement is a treaty that was signed in, or began to work in 1995, I think.
1985, yes.
1985 was signed, but I think it began in 1995. Anyway, so the treaty what made was that all the borders disappear, and it allows the free movement of people among the borders. No? So I took pictures of these abandoned and out of order checkpoints, but in 2015, when the Syrian war, some few countries decide to close again the borders. So this work that was more related with the past, with another time, suddenly it began to be very, we could say, very fashionable. So I received a lot of emails that many magazines that want to publish this reportage, because of some countries like Hungary, Poland, and some other decided to close again the pictures. Sorry, to close again the borders. So in this moment is when the Independent decided to publish, and then began all the process with Chris that saw the pictures and decided to grant me.
Okay, sorry about the camera. I don't know what's going on. But Chris, you said that you saw some pictures, or actually an article in the Independent on Sunday, and it was such an impact. I can guess, because it's rather unusual that you see photographs and then you decide that I have to write some stories about what would be what tells me those photographs.
Well, this is partly because of my background. I was my father was in the British military, and we used to live in Germany a lot, and we used to live with the Soviet army, and we lived with the Soviet army in Western Germany on a closed base there. So I was, from a young child, I was used to seeing guards, checkpoints, border posts, places that you weren't allowed to go, places that you were allowed to go. And so it's very part of my DNA. Also growing up at that time when there was the Baader-Meinhof gang in Germany, it was the time of the Palestinian terrorist attacks at the Munich Olympics. So it's that very frenetic and dangerous time. And just the images of the border posts suggested those sort of stories, but brought up to date, made more contemporary, and in the modern arena, without the level of danger, but still with people passing across and moving through.
Yeah, so it was actually from your personal life experience that those souvenirs, that those new images or checkpoints or borders that are not used anymore, I am not used anymore, but through the new reality, then you wrote the stories that are behind those wonderful stories, I must say. And so sorry, with the camera, I don't know what is happening. Then you contacted Ignacio and you started the process for producing the book. What were the main challenges that you faced? Because I suppose that it's rather unusual project, and also photography and text. And how were the challenges, or the main challenges you faced?
Well, I've always, as a journalist, I always worked very closely with photographers, and so that wasn't a particular challenge. But the main challenge was taking a single image as a starting point for a story, and just having to, for example, the first story I worked on was the AK-47 of pickup trucks. And that is literally just a line of chalk in the ground with a border post next to it. And so to try and imagine a situation of who might be there, why might they be there, what dangers might they face, what's their jeopardy, what might happen, who might be after them, who might they be after. It just, the photographs themselves pose the questions that create the story, if that makes sense.
It is.
Ignacio?
Yes.
Sorry.
Well, I think what being more in a practical level, what was really complicated also was to find a publisher, as Chris know and we all know, because we were, I think that from the very first moment that Chris contacted me until the moment that we finally published the book, it happened 8 years. So we, at the beginning, we tried with several publishers, but at the end it didn't work. And yeah, I wrote to a lot of publishers, more than 100 publishers. And the problem is, I think that one of the problems was that it's not exactly a photo book, and it's not exactly a book of stories. Because, for example, I remember that a couple of persons told me that you have to do an ordinary and usual photo book, forget the stories, and make just a photo book. And probably to Chris, somebody said the same, with just forget the images and try to publish just the stories. So I think that was for me was the main challenge, because it's some kind of new format, because it's not exactly for a book, or not exactly a book of tales or stories.
Yes, I agree with Ignacio, because what we're trying to do, it wasn't just short stories and photographs. We also wanted to weave photographs into the short stories, so that the reader is having a journey through the book, almost like the people in the stories are on a journey. So you're going through the book, you're seeing different images that relate to the story or suggest different elements of the story. So you have the border photographs that the stories come from, and then you have other incidental photographs that take the story possibly somewhere else. So it's just a continual journey. It was the brief that we wanted to give the publishing house and the design team. And luckily enough, Dossier Industries in Australia were very empathetic towards the nature of the project, and the designers there put the book together very, very neatly and very cleverly, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, in that sense, we were very lucky with the publisher, with Dossier Industries, that we at the end, because Annette, who is the owner and designer of Dossier Industries, is a publisher from Australia. I think Chris and me, we are really happy with the layout she made, because as Chris said, it's complicated to mix images and several kind of images and text, and to bring at the end an interesting product.
Thank you. This question is for Chris, and then I have another for Ignacio. How was the process for writing these stories and connecting them to the photograph of the book? Did you interview the migrants, or is just you made up the fictional characters completely?
No, because it's not a work of journalism. There's research done into places and types of people, but it's a complete work of fiction. It's imaginary. It's completely made up. Some of the places I have been to, some of the places I've passed through, other places I've researched just for detail for the places, like names of clubs in Moscow, names of bars in Rotterdam. So there's a verite to it. And the rest of it was just a work of fiction, much like my life.
So as everything is most of is fiction, and you documented, you did some research about the places, no? But the characters are all fiction. And for Ignacio, what attracts you the idea of making photograph of borders that is part of your important part of your work, and also borders that are useless, we could say, in a certain way. How you started this interest and to make the photographs of the borders that after Schengen are not in use?
Well, as you said before, I'm not exactly interested in borders themselves, but I'm really interested as a photographer in places, as you said before, that seems to be out of context, we could say. No? That I love when you arrive to a place and you say, what the hell is this doing here? No? For example, when you see an abandoned checkpoint, or when I was in Mexico and you see the border wall between Mexico and the United States in the middle of the desert, or getting into the Pacific Ocean. No? So it's absolutely crazy and surrealism. So I love this kind of topics as a photographer. So the after Schengen really began with this. I was in some journey, I think in between Spain and France, and I discovered this abandoned border, and I also was very surprised that well, of course, it was free. And I also remind me that when I was a child, I was very interested in maps. You know, when I was a child, it was very funny in Valencia, my parents' home. I remember looking at an atlas, you know, these books with maps, and I was very intrigued by the border lines, because I remember that in Europe the lines were very curved and really strange, and in other places like Africa, for example, they were very right, very because of colonialism. So in that moment, I thought that, with maybe I was 8 years or something like that, that African people were much more clever because they make it easier than Europeans. No? Of course, I didn't know anything about colonialism, about all these things. No? But even now, when I went to several borders, I find fantastic and amazing this absolutely crazy concept that when you are a line, for example, or a barrier, and you make a step, and you are in another different country, and 1 meter in the other direction, you are in different country. You know? So you can jump the line, and so it's absolutely crazy, and I love it.
Yes, and also there is the reality, of the communities that live between. Also, there are cities actually that are part in one country and part in another, no? Yes, and the book has already been launched in Madrid, no? How was the reaction of the public, of the questions, how they received the work, and what is your impression as authors of how were perceived by the audience in Spain, in Madrid?
Chris, you, me?
You.
Okay, well, Chris and I, we were together launching the book in La Fábrica. That is a very important place in Madrid. They are the organizers of Foto España. That is a very big photography.
Foto España, yes.
Foto España, yes.
Yeah.
So, and I think it was very interesting because, well, first I wrote to La Fábrica because, as we are with a very small publisher, independent publisher, so we have to make all the marketing and the advertising actions for ourselves. No? So I decided to write the La Fábrica bookshop, just showing our book. And very surprising, they like it, and they decide that they wanted to take the book to the bookshop for sale. And when I take the books, they asked me for 10 books, I think. The girl who runs the bookshop take a look at the book. She found it very interesting, and she proposed me to make a launch of the book in the bookshop. What is not they didn't do with all the books they have, no. So it was really perfect, and it was in July thing, and Chris came to Madrid as well. And yeah, we were together, and the other thing was very, but the feedback I had from people, it was that it was very relaxed, very natural, and there were a lot of questions, and I think we had a good time. What do you think, Chris?
But
Yeah,
sorry, Chris. Yes, please.
Sorry, I'd agree with that. Because we also launched it in London. It's a small Albanian barbershop.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Different sort of launch, because it was much more London. It was slightly looser, and I think in Spain it's just more structured, and Spaniards tend to take things like this slightly more seriously than English people.
And I suppose, no, in the public there were maybe young people that didn't know the reality of have borders in Europe, because for people of a certain age is something natural. Speaking from myself, I knew until the late 80s that there were borders. You travel to France, and then you had to so yeah. That there are the younger people that in Europe they don't know the reality. Were they intrigued, or maybe the public there were people of older that they already knew that reality?
Well, I think that post-Brexit in Britain, the young people are aware of borders again.
Okay. Yes, you said that the book was launched also in London, and when and where is going to be launched and presented again?
We're doing. We've got a presentation at the festival Enya in Madrid, which is a large literary festival, which is usually open only to the Hispanic markets, and this is the first year that they're having English authors there, and the British Council in Madrid are hosting us at a table there, so that's going to be in mid-October. And also we're doing a presentation at the Spanish Book Fair in London in October as well.
Very practical question, but very important. Where can we buy the book, the people, the audience who have interest? Let me tell them that we will have the book in our library in Instituto Cervantes, Manchester. But apart from that, there are my people who are listening now or in the future, because this launch will be on our YouTube channel permanently. So how can we buy the book?
Well, in Britain, you can get it at John Sandow Books in Chelsea, and a shop in Pimlico in London called Volpe, another shop called The Cross in London, Holland Park. Also, Blackwell's Bookshops, which is a chain, they also are carrying it. And also the easiest way to get it is through my website, which is burkham.co.uk. It's BURKHAM. And also, although it pains me to say this, it's also on Amazon.
Okay. And in Spain, or?
Yeah, in Spain, you can buy it in La Fábrica in Madrid, and also in my website, that is ignacioevangelista.com. And I think in Nottingham as well, Chris?
Yes, Nottingham, Beam Editions, a gallery in Nottingham. Sorry, I forgot them. They've also got copies. And it's been rolled out into other bookshops like the Photographer's Gallery in the ICA by our distributor, who are called Antenne. So that should be happening over the next few months. But all these things take time.
Yes. Okay. You are at the beginning of the process.
Yeah.
Once the book is already is already launched. But being in the Festival Eñe and you said Foto España? No Foto España.
No, it's the things Chris said before in British Council Madrid is in 18th October, I think. No, 18th October.
Yeah,
That is
Eñe, Festival Eñe.
Sanguar's birthday as well. So that launches inside Festival Eñe. That is a very important literature festival that
it's
takes
very
part
well known,
in
yes.
Madrid.
Okay, so now we are going to see some of the photographs have been chosen for the book and the stories, and Chris will explain briefly some of the stories behind or with the photographs.
Right, this is obviously the cover of the book. This story is Where's Gosha Rubchinsky, which follows a T-shirt from Moscow drawing board of a Russian streetwear designer, Gosha Rubchinsky, to the hands of a man who just buried his wife on the Austrian-Czechoslovak border. And the journey takes in a Turkish worker who manufactured the T-shirt in Istanbul, then travels to Romania where it falls into the hands of a street hustler, then to a Swiss lorry driver who passed on to a hitchhiking runaway, passes through Paris, Rotterdam, before ultimately sending it to her father, pretending it's from where she works, or we have his work, or the pretense of work. But Gosha effectively sets the tone for Europa as it highlights how interconnected we all are as Europeans, and the T-shirt effectively travels the continent much as citizens can and should. And the next image. This is Charlie Don't Surf, which is a two-pronged story that juxtaposes the conversation between an uncle and his niece, John and Erin, as Erin tries to make sense of how she's become involved in John's criminality and the fallout from a trip where she becomes all too aware of what his business really is. Effectively, it's the story of scales falling from a teenage Erin's eyes during her first visit to Europe. It follows their journey across Europe, a loss of innocence, and how small-time crime can easily mutate into something a lot more pernicious. And the next image. This is Stromboli 1950, which takes Roberto Rossellini's film of the same name as its starting point and plays with the same themes of alienation, being in the wrong place at the wrong time, and also losing your identity once you've left your country of birth. Its two protagonists, a British loner, Jay, and a German refugee, Angela, gradually unspool their lives during one long, uneventful day on a beat-up estate in the Midlands, punctuated by drinking, drug-taking. As the voices of Rossellini, Ingrid Bergman and Isabella Rossellini act as a Greek chorus linking the film and the story, a near-realist masterpiece, I think you'll agree. And next image. This is the first story I wrote, which is the AK-47 of pickup trucks. And this involves two Balkan smugglers who passing time at a border post that is nothing but a line of chalk on the ground, as you can see from the photograph. They are being watched by Elsa, who is fleeing mistakes she's made in Denmark, mistakes she's made in Dresden, and mistakes she's made as she travels south. Their lives become intertwined when there's a shootout at the border. And throughout AK-47, a Europol policewoman, Elena Catalan, tries to discover where the truth lies. And next, Carlos. Things sound better in black and white. This is a woman's found dead in London flat, crammed with memories. Her body is discovered by her young neighbor, and now the scene is overseen by local policemen. While the two of them piece together a life through her possessions, her ghost recounts her journey fleeing the Nazis in the Second World War from Belgium to Marseille, across the Pyrenees to Portbou, where her father dies, then on to Skews the motorbike, and then on to Lisbon, where her life was desperate, scavenging, begging, barely existing. These experiences have haunted her ever since to a lonely death, surrounded by mounds of out-of-date newspapers. And the final one, Carlos, Confederation Africaine de Football. The final story in the collection begins in Africa, in Juba, in South Sudan, and follows the life and dreams of innocent, talented footballer who wants nothing more than to play football in Europe. His journey to Europe, though, is beset by betrayals, and he finds himself undocumented and adrift, playing for fistfuls of euros in the lowest of French and Spanish leagues until he ends up in England, working as enforcer for a gang running illegal labourers in the Fenlands. He finds solace playing Sunday league football, has a girlfriend, and his life seems settled, but there are seldom happy endings. And those are the stories of Europa.
Thank you, Chris. So now we are open to questions from the audience. If you have any questions, you can put that on the chat, or eventually there is somebody who want to ask our guests directly. Is it possible? Only to remind you that it's being recorded, and that would be in our YouTube channel. So you are very welcome if you have questions. I would like to ask some more to you. What are your I guess you are working in new projects. Are you working in some projects together or individually? What are have you got in mind? What is going on now regarding photography and writing?
We've got one project that we're considering at the moment, which is based on some photographs that Ignacio took of this hotel in Spain called the Hotel Claridge. Nothing to do with Claridge, it's in London. And it's a deserted, brutalist hotel that shut down all of a sudden literally one night when the road outside it was closed and the new autoroute was open. So there was no traffic from Madrid to Valencia. And so it just fell into disrepair since then. So we visited that site and we found mementos and former documents. And that's a possible story. I'm also working on a project with photographer Steve Pike called One Shot, where he sends me photographs from his archive. He's in New Orleans. He used to be a photographer, the New Yorker. I used to work with a lot with him in the 80s. And he sends me one photograph and I react to it in the same way that I used to react to Ignacio's photos, like just where does this photograph take me in the world of fiction? And then following on from that, I send the story to Steve Pike, and then he will react to that story with further photographs to illustrate the story as he sees it, which again is this idea of the hybrid book where you've got photography sparking a story and then adding more photographs to the story as the story unfolds. So those are one I'm working with Ignacio on and one I'm working with Steve Pike on.
Ignacio, something more to add? Yes,
well, this project that is in the very beginning with Chris about the Hotel Claridge, that is, as Chris said, an abandoned hotel. And
you have already started in this project of the Claridge Hotel.
Well, I made the pictures. I mean, it's more or less the same way we made Europa. I mean, first I make just a photographic project, but then when Chris saw it, he think about it and he proposed me to make the same way. So he's going to write some kind of stories inspired in these pictures of the hotel. And then we will try to, I suppose, to publish a book with his stories and my pictures. I hope this time is going to be a little bit easier.
So there is a precedent, no? So
okay. And when we were together in Madrid, presenting the book in La Fábrica, we made a short travel to the hotel with Chris and Sophie and his wife, and so he could take a look. He was able to take a look and inspire and feel the energy.
How far is this hotel from Madrid?
It's 2 hours. It's in Alarcón, Cuenca. It's a beautiful village, by the way.
Alarcón, I know Alarcón.
Alarcón, yes.
There's a parador as well, no?
Exactly, there is a parador in Alarcón. So it's 10 minutes from Alarcón, and I stopped in that hotel a lot of times because when I was younger, the only way, well, the main way to go from Valencia, that is my hometown, to Madrid was by bus. It was the cheapest way, and all the buses stop in this hotel because the company was the owner of the buses and the hotel. So that hotel has a lot of memories for me. Okay. And also I'm finishing another project called BOR, B-O-R, Before the Satellite. That is a very, not crazy, but strange project about the radio beacons that are some kind of areas of antennas that almost nobody knows. I didn't know before. Only people related with aeronautics. That is the beacons that guide to the airplanes, and so the pilot is able to fix the position of the airplane. But the point is that they are very big. It seems they seem some kind of UFO, and they are in the middle of nothing, in the middle of the country. So again, there are places that when you arrive there, it's like, what the hell is this doing here? Some kind of UFO in the middle of a country.
But are there no numerous those beacons in?
Sorry?
See, if there are many in the country, because
yeah, in Spain there are 69, and along the world there is more than 3,000, because it's still today is the main way to guide the airplanes. There is also satellite systems, as you know. So because that is called BOR before the satellite, because BOR is the 3 letters. It means very high frequency omnidirectional range, so it's a very technical thing. But the problem with satellite is that when there is solar storms in some moments, the satellite systems can fall down, okay, can collapse. So they need to have some kind of backup system, that is these radio beacons that are still working absolutely in all the world.
Yes. So I will have I have some more questions for you. Going back to the Claridge Hotel that you are working on, you have already made some photographs, but Chris, have you already started to write the stories about? Because I guess it's something completely different from the books about after Schengen. That is very obvious, but also the people, the travelers, because you refer. It's a very Spanish reality in the sense that people traveling for those not small but secondary roads. I don't know if it is the exact term in English. And now that are abandoned, have you already start the stories or?
No, not yet. At the moment, I'm working on how to approach them, because, as you say, it's a very specific and Spanish hotel, and as you say, a minor or secondary road. But if some of the stories are going to be historical, then they would involve obviously travelers from other countries and other stories from other countries. And also, if it's contemporary, then it can involve people using the building, local youth who do a lot of graffiti there. It can be a hideout for someone on the run. It's an empty stage where any plays can be set. So that's the basic premise of it. The Hotel Claridge is an empty stage, and you could have one story in a hotel room. It can be back when it was used, or it can be as it is now. You can have a story in an old phone booth. You can have a story around the swimming pool. You used to have tennis courts. It used to have a huge cafeteria, restaurant, and it has possibilities. It's one of those things, because I've got all the photographs now, so it's just something that I'm mulling over in my mind while I'm working out which project to concentrate on next.
Yeah. We have a question from Steve Pike. Says that the connection between the images and words in the book is not so obvious. They don't illustrate each other. Chris, did you have a choice of photographs to work from?
No, I didn't. There were more photographs of the borders, because I don't know how many photographs do you take in all, Ignacio, of the different borders?
Well, I made, I really don't remember. Well, I don't make so much, because it's a work made with large format camera. With, I don't know if you know, but it's these very big and old cameras, film cameras, of course. So the way to work is very slow. So it's not like you take a reflex camera and you buy and you 5 minutes and go to another place.
Well, so, I think there are, I mean, we only use 6 images, but I think there must be about 12 main images.
Final images are 16, were 16 final images of After Schengen, but I have much more than those 16.
as I say, 16 images, not 12. And so we just whittled it down to a package where I worked from one photograph, and then we brought in other photographs to illustrate the story. So I see what Steve Pike says, that yes, they don't bear an instant relation to each other, because again, going back to that thing about stage setting, the photographs are just a stage set, and therefore any story can take place there. And that's the way it works, is that any story can take place. It could be to do with financiers, it could be ballerinas, it could be children, it could be anything.
And also, Sid Pike asked Ignacio, how did you arrive at the edition? How many did you have to work from?
Yes, as I was saying, I don't remember exactly how many border checkpoints I was, but as I told you, it was made. I think you are a photographer, Steve. So with a large format camera, so that is a very slow way to work. So I just take one or two shots in each border checkpoint. But at the end, I decide to work with 16 images that for me are the basic, the 16 hero images that our publisher said. But I have some more, maybe 30 something.
So not a lot, no? I'm not an expert on the field, but not so many images that you were.
No, because I was interested in the building, in the places, but not all places have buildings. So, and when you work with a large format camera, it's a very different way to work. So you fix the camera in 1 point or 2 points and make a few shots, and that's all. It's a very different way to work. It's not photojournalism. It's,
and related to that, of the process of taking the pictures, you mentioned that there was some border that the were or reused, or the authorities of some countries wanted to put on to establish again. Did you come across something like that? Because there was a debate, but actually when there was the crisis, it was 2015 with the refugees, and some countries established some border control. But did you come across something like that in the process of taking photographs? A border which was derelict or not used for a long time and then reused?
Yes, I remember perfectly one between Austria and Hungary that it's one of the 16 final images. And of course, when I take the picture, it was absolutely abandoned and empty. And some years later, in 2015, there was in the news with queues of people trying to cross to Hungary. So yeah, exactly the same border checkpoint.
Yeah, we have another question from Nick Pike. Ignacio and Chris, would you both be interested in doing a film of the work, to have your narration over the images, to have a more immersive experience of some of these short stories, as a slight show that could after a larger experience of the images with words?
I would most definitely love to make some sort of a film of the stories and the pictures, and it's everyone's dream to have a book made into either TV documentary / documentary drama. Basically, I tend to write with a cinematic viewpoint, so it would translate very easily into that medium. And also the border images and also other border images that we're living through in this period of time at the moment would further enhance the experience. So I mean, I think it's something I would very much like to do, but it depends on who's going to fund it.
I absolutely agree with Chris.
Okay.
Maybe Spielberg wants to do something.
Sorry?
No, maybe Spielberg wants to do something. No, yeah, stupid joke.
Nick Pike who put her question, but I don't see any more on the chat. Okay, So if there are no more questions or comments, I would like only, you want to add maybe something else, Ignacio or Chris?
Just give you thanks, Pedro, for the opportunity of this this display of the book, and thank you also, sorry, to the audience for for being here with us.
Yes, I'd like to thank the audience and especially your interesting questions, and also you, Pedro, and the Instituto Cervantes, and just tell all your friends and rush out and buy the book.
Yes, the book, as I said, we will. Instituto Cervantes, for sure, we will have, as I mentioned before, in our library, which is open to the general public. It's a public Spanish library in central Manchester. And I would very much like to thank you both, Ignacio and Chris, for congratulations again for this fantastic work and book. We know from what you have explained and that sometimes it's not so easy to come to the end of the projects, but in this case, it was the case that a real success, great book that I recommend you to all to read. And thank you again. And for our audience, I see you maybe next week. We have our next event, book launch again on the 12th of September on this channel online with Rosie Song from the Dora University, who coordinates a series of ex libris about the books that have been published in the last year about Hispanic different themes. In that case, it will be about the censorship in theater in the start of the Franco's regime, a very different topic. So thank you very much and have a nice evening to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Muchas gracias.
Gracias, ciao.